The rain fell like a curse from the heavens, heavy and merciless, drumming against the tin rooftops of the small town. The wind howled through the narrow streets, scattering leaves, papers, and broken dreams. In the middle of the storm, a young girl stumbled barefoot along the muddy road. Her name was Amma. Her dress, once white, was now torn and soaked, clinging to her shivering body. Her hands held a small bag pressed tightly against her chest, everything she owned in this cruel world. Tears rolled down her cheeks, mixing with the cold rain. Her breath came in sharp, painful gasps. Behind her, the faint sound of shouting still echoed from the house she had just been thrown out of. Her stepmother's voice rang like thunder in her ears. "You ungrateful girl. You dare to lie to me? Get out. I never want to see your face again." Amma didn't even try to defend herself anymore. There was no point. Ever since her father's death 2 years ago, Madame Funk had turned her home into a prison. Every day had been a battle, cooking, cleaning, scrubbing floors until her hands bled, only to be rewarded with insults. But tonight was worse. Tonight, her stepmother accused her of stealing a gold necklace, something Amma hadn't even touched. She had pleaded, kneeling in front of her, "Mama Funk, please, I didn't take anything. I swear on my father's grave." But Madame Funk's eyes had been filled with hatred. She had grabbed Amma's bag and thrown it at her feet. "Out, before I call the police. Go live in the streets where you belong." So Amma had walked into the storm, with nowhere to go, no one to turn to. The world around her was silent except for the sound of thunder. Her bare feet splashed through puddles, her body trembling violently. The rain bit into her skin like needles. Each step felt heavier than the last. She tried to find shelter under an old mango tree, but the wind was too strong, tearing at her soaked hair. "God, why?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "Why me? What did I do wrong?" But the only answer was the growl of thunder overhead. Then, through the curtain of rain, she saw headlights approaching. A black car, sleek, expensive, out of place on this lonely road, slowed down beside her. For a moment, she froze, fear flashing through her heart. The tinted window rolled down with a smooth hum. Inside, she saw a man's silhouette. His face was half hidden by shadows, but his voice was deep, calm, and strangely powerful. "What are you doing out here at this hour?" he asked. Amma didn't answer. She took a step back, clutching her bag tightly. "Please, I'll move. I'm not begging," she stammered. The man looked at her for a long moment, then opened his door and stepped out. The rain soaked his dark coat instantly, but he didn't care. He walked toward her slowly, studying her face. His eyes were intense, unreadable. "You'll get sick out here," he said softly. Then he did something Amma didn't expect. He took off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. The warmth startled her. The scent of his cologne mixed with rain filled her senses. She looked up, confused. He turned toward the car, opened the passenger door, and looked back at her. His voice was firm, commanding, yet strangely kind. "Get in." For a heartbeat, time stood still. Amma's heart raced. Who was this man? Why did he care? Thunder cracked again in the distance. She hesitated, trembling, but something inside her whispered maybe fate had sent this stranger. Maybe, for once, God had not forgotten her. She stepped forward, eyes filled with fear and hope, and slowly, she got in. The ride was silent except for the rhythmic hum of the car's engine and the rain beating against the windows. Amma sat stiffly in the passenger seat, her hands folded in her lap, afraid to look at the man beside her. The interior of the car smelled of leather and something faintly sweet, power mixed with mystery. Every time she stole a glance, she caught his sharp jawline, illuminated by the passing streetlights. His eyes fixed on the road ahead, unbothered by the storm. After a while, she gathered the courage to whisper, "Thank you, sir, for helping me." He didn't reply immediately. Then, in a low voice, he said, "You shouldn't be walking alone in the rain at midnight. It's dangerous." "I had nowhere else to go," she murmured, barely audible. He turned slightly toward her. "No family? No friends?" She shook her head. "Not anymore." He said nothing after that, but his fingers tightened slightly on the steering wheel. The rest of the journey passed in silence. When the car finally slowed down, Amma looked out the window and gasped. Before her stood a grand mansion, tall gates, wide lawns, and light glowing from long glass windows. It looked like a palace compared to the small wooden house she had grown up in. "Come," the man said, stepping out into the rain. She hesitated before following him. 2 security guards at the gate bowed respectfully. "Good evening, Mr. Mensa," they said. So that was his name, Kwaku Mensa. Inside, the mansion was dimly lit, decorated with dark wood, crystal chandeliers, and old portraits that seemed to watch her every move. The marble floor shone beneath her muddy feet, and she quickly tried to wipe them clean. Embarrassed, a woman in a maid's uniform appeared, her eyes scanning Amma from head to toe. "Sir, who is this?" she asked sharply. Kwaku's tone was cold. "Prepare a room in the servants' quarters. Get her dry clothes and food." The maid frowned but nodded. "Yes, sir." Amma wanted to protest, to say she didn't want to cause trouble, but exhaustion weighed her down. Her body shivered as she followed the maid through long hallways. Every corner of the house whispered of money, but also of loneliness. No laughter, no music, only silence. In the small guest room, the maid handed her a towel and clothes, muttering under her breath, "You're lucky the boss didn't throw you out. Don't think you can fool him." Amma ignored her, too tired to respond. She dried her hair and changed into the simple pajamas provided. When she looked into the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Pale, fragile, eyes swollen from crying. Moments later, there was a knock on the door. She opened it to find a tray of warm food waiting. Her stomach growled, but before she could touch it, she heard muffled voices down the corridor. One belonged to Kwaku, calm but filled with anger. "I told you never to mention my brother again," he said sharply. Amma froze. His brother? The voice of pain in his tone made her heart ache. She wondered what kind of loss haunted this man. That night, lying in the softest bed she'd ever known, Amma couldn't sleep. The storm had passed outside, but inside that mansion, another storm was brewing. Quiet, invisible, and waiting, sleep came to Amma in broken pieces, haunted by memories she had long tried to bury. In the stillness of the night, her mind drifted back to a time before everything fell apart. Back when laughter still filled her father's house. She could still see her father's smile, his strong hands covered in oil as he worked on old engines in the backyard. "Amma," he used to say, "a kind heart is worth more than gold." She had believed him. When her mother died, the house grew quiet, but her father never let her feel alone. Then one day, he brought home a woman named Madame Funk, beautiful, soft-spoken, and kind. Amma had welcomed her with open arms, happy to have a mother again. But that warmth didn't last long. After the wedding, everything began to change. Madame Funk's smiles faded, her tone hardened, and her love turned to control. When Amma's father fell ill, Funk took over the household, deciding what he ate, who visited, even how Amma dressed. And when he died, everything darkened. Amma's inheritance disappeared overnight. The house, her father's tools, even the small savings he'd left her, all claimed by Funk. "Your father owed me everything," she said coldly. "Now, you owe me." From that day, Amma became a servant in her own home, cooking and cleaning for her stepmother and stepsister Tai. Every morning, she woke before dawn to sweep the compound. Every night, she scrubbed until her fingers ached. And still, it was never enough. "You're lazy, useless," Funk would shout, throwing dishes on the floor. "No wonder your father pitied you." Amma endured in silence, whispering prayers to her mother's spirit, begging for strength. She dreamed of becoming a nurse, of helping people, of escaping. But dreams had no place in Madame Funk's house. And then came the day of the necklace. A golden chain went missing. Tai's, a gift from her fiancé. Funk's fury was instant. "You thief, I knew it. You've always been jealous of my daughter." Amma fell to her knees. "I didn't take it, Mama, I swear." But her stepmother didn't care. She dragged her to the door, threw her bag at her feet, and screamed, "Out! Go find where you belong, in the gutter." That night, Amma had wandered into the rain, broken but innocent. Now, lying in a strange bed in Kwaku Mensa's mansion, she wiped a tear from her cheek. She whispered softly, "Papa, if you can hear me, I'm still trying to be kind. Even when the world isn't." In another part of the mansion, Kwaku sat in his study, staring at a framed photo on his desk, a younger version of himself and a boy with the same eyes. His brother. His voice cracked as he whispered, "I'm sorry, Kojo. I should have saved you." He closed his eyes, remembering the accident, the screaming breaks. The next morning, sunlight filtered weakly through the heavy curtains of the small guest room. Amma blinked awake, her body sore but warm for the first time in days. For a few seconds, she forgot where she was. Then the memory of the storm, the car, and the mysterious man came flooding back. She sat up quickly, clutching the blanket to her chest. Outside, the mansion was quiet. She heard faint footsteps and the distant clatter of dishes. When she peeked through the door, a young maid passed by carrying flowers. Their eyes met for a brief moment before the maid looked away with disdain. "You're still here," she muttered. "Don't get too comfortable." Amma said nothing. She wasn't here to make friends. She just wanted to thank the man who had saved her and then leave quietly. She walked slowly through the corridor, feeling out of place among the polished floors and the portraits of powerful men in suits. The house smelled of coffee and polish, but beneath it all was something colder. Loneliness. She found Kwaku in the dining room, sitting alone with a cup of tea and a newspaper spread before him. He looked up when she entered. His face was calm, expression unreadable. "You're awake," he said simply. "Yes, sir. I just wanted to thank you for helping me last night," she said, her voice trembling slightly. He folded the newspaper neatly. "You should eat. You looked half dead when I found you." "I can't stay," Amma said quickly. "You've already done enough. I'll find somewhere to go." He leaned back in his chair, studying her. "And where will you go exactly? Back to the street? To the stepmother who threw you out?" Her lips parted, but no words came. He was right. She had nowhere. "I don't keep strangers here," he continued, "but you can stay for a few days. There's work around the house if you want to earn your keep." Amma nodded slowly. "Thank you. I'll work. I don't take charity." That made him look at her differently, a flicker of respect, maybe even curiosity. Most people begged him for favors, money, or power. But this girl, shivering and broken, refused pity. From that day, Amma began helping in small ways, washing dishes, watering the plants, arranging books in the vast library. The staff mocked her quietly, whispering, "Let's see how long she lasts," but she ignored them. One afternoon, while dusting the piano in the grand hall, she brushed her fingers over the keys. A faint sound escaped, soft and delicate. She hesitated, then pressed another note, then another. Slowly, a melody formed, sweet, sad, and haunting. From behind her, Kwaku stopped in the doorway, watching silently. He hadn't heard music in that house for years, not since his brother's death. When Amma realized he was there, she stood abruptly. "I'm sorry, sir. I shouldn't have play," he said quietly. She blinked, unsure. "Sir?" He nodded. "Go on." So she played again, a tune of pain and peace intertwined. The sound filled the mansion like sunlight breaking through clouds. When the last note faded, Kwaku said nothing. But as he turned to leave, Amma could have sworn she saw something in his eyes, a hint of warmth breaking through the cold. Days passed, and a strange calm settled over the mansion. Amma had found a quiet rhythm. She cleaned, cooked, helped in the gardens, and in the evenings, played soft tunes on the piano. It was her way of speaking without words, of showing gratitude to the man who had saved her. Sometimes she would catch Kwaku watching her from a distance, his expression unreadable. He never smiled, but there was a certain gentleness now when he spoke to her. However, not everyone in the house welcomed her presence. Nana, Kwaku's personal secretary, noticed the change immediately. She had been with him for years, loyal and quietly in love with him, though he never returned her affection. Seeing Amma, poor, fragile girl, sitting across from him during breakfast or walking beside him in the garden, filled Nana with silent rage. "She's manipulating you," Nana said one afternoon when she brought Kwaku some documents. "These street girls, they know how to act innocent. She's probably after your money." Kwaku didn't even look up from the papers. "That's enough, Nana. She's just helping around the house." "Helping?" Nana scoffed. "You let her play your piano, eat at your table because she earned my respect," he interrupted sharply. His tone was calm, but final. "Don't question my decisions." Nana left with a forced smile, but anger burned inside her like fire. That night, she watched Amma from the shadows of the hallway as the girl hummed softly while cleaning. Her kindness made her an easy target. Too trusting, too open. By the end of the week, rumors began to spread among the staff. Whispered lies that Amma had stolen jewelry, that she'd been seen sneaking into Kwaku's office late at night. None of it was true, but gossip spreads faster than truth. The servants started giving her cold looks, refusing to eat with her. Amma noticed the change but stayed silent. She had lived through worse. "If I do good, God will see my heart," she whispered to herself each morning. One night, as rain began to fall again, she went to close the windows in the garden corridor. The air smelled of wet earth and roses. Suddenly, she heard footsteps behind her, quick, heavy. Before she could turn, a hand grabbed her arm roughly. A man in a black mask shoved her against the wall. "Stay quiet," he hissed. Alma's heart pounded in terror. "Please, don't hurt me," she cried. The man tightened his grip, trying to snatch the chain from her neck, a small locket that had belonged to her mother. Then, from the darkness, a voice thundered, "Let her go." Kwaku appeared, fury in his eyes. He lunged forward, grabbing the attacker and punching him hard. The man stumbled, then fled into the rain before the guards could catch him. Kwaku turned to Amma, his breathing heavy. "Are you hurt?" he asked, holding her shoulders. She shook her head, trembling. "I am fine, sir." But when she looked into his eyes, she saw something she hadn't seen before: fear. Not fear for himself, but for her. As the guards searched the grounds, Kwaku's mind raced. That attack wasn't random. Someone inside his house had planned it, and he had a strong feeling he already knew who. The next morning, the mansion buzzed with whispers. The attempted attack on Amma had everyone on edge. Guards doubled their patrols, and the staff spoke in hushed tones whenever Kwaku passed by. Amma stayed mostly in her room, shaken but grateful to be alive. She couldn't forget the look in Kwaku's eyes when he had pulled her away from danger, the mix of anger, worry, and something deeper she couldn't name. Kwaku, on the other hand, hadn't slept. He sat in his study, staring at the security footage. Hours passed before the image became clear. The intruder's face was hidden, but the access logs told a different story. Someone inside had unlocked the side gate that night, and only one person had the authority to do that: Nana. He confronted her that afternoon. "You let that man in," he said coldly, tossing the printed logbook onto her desk. Nana's eyes widened, then narrowed. "You're accusing me? After everything I've done for you?" "I'm not accusing," he replied. "I'm stating a fact." She rose from her chair, voice trembling with rage. "I did it for you, Kwaku. That girl doesn't belong here. Can't you see she's changing you? You're not the same man anymore." Kwaku's voice dropped, dangerously calm. "You're right, I'm not. Because for the first time, I see what's real and what's rotten." Nana's face twisted with pain and humiliation. "You'll regret this," she hissed before storming out. Later that evening, Kwaku went to Amma's room. She stood by the window, watching the rain fall again, just as it had on the night they met. Her hair was damp from the humid air, and her hands clutched the small locket tightly. "You should leave this house," he said quietly. She turned, startled. "Why? Did I do something wrong?" "No," his jaw tightened. "It's me. I bring trouble to everyone close to me." Amma shook her head, tears forming. "Don't say that. You saved me. I failed to protect you," he replied, his voice breaking slightly. "Someone tried to hurt you because of me. I can't risk your safety." She stepped closer, her voice gentle but firm. "You don't have to protect me from kindness, sir. I'm not afraid of storms anymore." Her words pierced him, but he looked away. "Still, you should go. I'll make sure you're taken care of." The silence between them was thick and painful. Then Amma whispered, "If you think money can replace peace, you're wrong. I didn't come here for what you have. I came here because God led me here that night." But Kwaku's guilt was too heavy. "Please," he said, almost pleading. "Just go." The next morning, Amma packed her few belongings. The sky was gray again, the rain unrelenting. When the car dropped her at the edge of the city, she didn't look back. Kwaku stood at the window, watching the storm swallow her figure until she was gone. For days, the mansion was silent again. The music was gone, the warmth gone. Only emptiness remained. But one evening, when the thunder rolled once more, Kwaku received a call from one of his staff. "Sir," the man said nervously, "we found her. She's in the hospital." She collapsed at work. Kwaku froze, the phone trembling in his hand. "Where?" he whispered. "Outside." The storm raged on, the same storm that had brought her into his life once before. He grabbed his coat and ran into the rain. The hospital smelled faintly of antiseptic and rain-soaked air. Kwaku pushed through the doors, his heart pounding harder than it had in years. His driver and guards struggled to keep up as he strode down the corridor, ignoring the startled glances of nurses and patients who recognized the powerful billionaire. For the first time, his wealth meant nothing, not when the one person who had taught him how to feel again lay unconscious somewhere behind those white walls. He found her in a small room at the end of the hall. Amma lay on a narrow bed, pale and fragile, and Four dripping slowly beside her. Her lips were dry, her breathing shallow. The sight hit him like a blade to the chest. He sat beside her and reached for her hand, his fingers trembling. I'm sorry, he whispered. I should never have let you go. The nurse entered quietly. She was working at a diner when she fainted. Malnutrition, exhaustion, and pneumonia from being out in the rain, she said softly. She's lucky someone found her in time. Kwaku closed his eyes, guilt pressing heavily on his shoulders. She won't suffer another day, I promise, he said. For 2 days, he stayed by her side, refusing meetings, ignoring calls, barely sleeping. He watched over her, feeding her spoonfuls of broth, wiping her forehead, whispering apologies. She couldn't hear. On the 3rd morning, when the first light crept through the curtains, Amma stirred. Her eyes fluttered open slowly, meeting his. Kwaku. She murmured weakly. He smiled through the ache in his chest. You're safe now. Her brow furrowed. Why are you here? You told me to leave. He swallowed hard. Because I was wrong. Because I was a fool who let my fear speak louder than my heart. He leaned closer, voice breaking. You said you weren't afraid of storms. But I was. I was afraid to love again. Tears welled in her eyes. You don't owe me anything, she whispered. He shook his head. Amma. You don't understand. You saved me long before I ever saved you. She looked away, silent for a moment. All I ever wanted was peace. Not wealth, not pity, just peace. Then let me give you that, he said, his voice firm. Come back with me. Not as a guest, not as a servant, but as someone who belongs. Amma blinked, tears spilling down her cheeks. You mean that? I swear it, he said softly. Within a few days, she returned to the mansion, though everything felt different now. The servants greeted her respectfully. Even the air seemed lighter. Nana was gone, quietly dismissed after the truth about her betrayal came to light. Kwaku made no grand speeches, but his actions spoke louder than words. During a small charity event a week later, he stood before the gathered guests. This woman, he said, looking at Amma, taught me that grace is stronger than pride, and that forgiveness is the greatest wealth of all. Amma blushed, her heart racing. When he turned toward her, his next words silenced the room. I love you, Amma, and I won't hide it again. Gasps filled the hall, followed by applause. For once, Kwaku didn't care about reputation or gossip. All he saw was her, the girl who had walked through storms and still shone like dawn. Amma smiled, tears glistening. Then let's start again, she said softly. Weeks later, the mansion that had once been filled with silence and shadows now echoed with laughter and music. Sunshine spilled through the wide windows, and the scent of fresh flowers filled every hallway. Amma walked through the garden in a flowing white dress, her smile brighter than the morning itself. For the first time in years, peace truly lived in her heart. Beside her, Kwaku watched quietly, hands in his pockets, a soft smile tugging at his lips. The woman who had once stood shivering in the rain now glowed with quiet strength. He admired how she carried herself, humble yet unbreakable. The day was special. They were inaugurating their new foundation, the lighthouse project built to shelter homeless girls, widows, and those abandoned like Amma once had been. It stood not far from the mansion, painted in warm colors, surrounded by gardens Amma herself had designed. As people gathered for the ceremony, Amma gave a small speech. Her voice trembled with emotion, but never broke. I once thought my life had ended the night I was thrown into the rain, she said, looking at the crowd of young girls before her. But sometimes what feels like the end is really the beginning. If the rain hadn't fallen that night, I would never have met the man who reminded me that kindness still exists. We all face storms, but the rain can also wash away our pain, if we let it. The crowd applauded warmly. Kwaku stepped forward, taking her hand gently. And she reminds me, he said, his deep voice carrying over the soft hum of the audience, that true wealth isn't in gold or business, but in love and forgiveness. Amma didn't just change this house, she changed me. The sky darkened suddenly, clouds rolling in like soft waves. People murmured, looking up as thunder rumbled in the distance. Amma tilted her face toward the heavens, smiling. It's raining again, she whispered. Within minutes, soft drops began to fall, light at first, then heavier, until everyone scrambled for shelter. But Amma stayed where she was, standing in the middle of the courtyard, her white dress glistening under the falling rain. Kwaku hesitated, then walked toward her, ignoring the gasps of their guests. You'll catch a cold, he said, laughing softly as the rain drenched his suit. Amma shook her head, her eyes glistening with tears that blended with the raindrops. No, Kwaku, this isn't the storm that hurt me. This is the rain that blessed me. He looked at her, truly looked, and saw not the girl he had rescued that night, but the woman who had rescued him instead. Gently, he placed his hand on her cheek and whispered, "That night, the rain didn't wash you away. It brought you to me." She smiled through the tears. "And it brought us both home." They stood together under the storm, laughing as the rain poured down, washing away the last traces of pain and loneliness. Around them, the guests watched, smiling through the drizzle. Two souls who had found peace in the very thing that once broke them. Later, when the rain stopped and the sun returned, a rainbow stretched across the sky. Alma looked up and whispered, "Thank you, Father. The storm was never my punishment. It was my path." And as Quaker wrapped his arm around her, the mansion behind them no longer felt like a house of shadows, but a home filled with light.